Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Gonna do when things happen and we just don't know what to do, right? So, let's think about changes in our day lives. Think about the weather. What happened when things change with the winter, with the summer? We have to adapt to clothes. We have to adapt to new jobs. We have to adapt to all kinds. So, for a moment, stop. What are the things that are changing in your life lately? What are the things that you would like to change in your life and you just don't know what to do? So today we're going to be talking to Sharon Connor, and Sharon is a professional coach. She's a minister, she's a writer, she's a motivational speaker, and she's going to be talking and sharing with us how we're going to deal with changes in our lives. Yes, you know, we do things every day the same day. Have you noticed that we brush our teeth the same way? We part our hair the same way. We wear the same colors because this is what we are used to. This is our comfort zone, right? And sometimes our comfort zone says, you know, I need to take a break. I'm not ready to deal with this right now. And then we feel alone and we just don't know what to do. But before we keep talking about it, let's listen to a poem by Ella Wheeler Wilcox that talks about changes in life.
Don't look for the flaws as you go through life, and even when you find them, it is wise and kind to be somewhat blind, and look for the virtue behind them, for the cloudiest night has a hint of light. Somewhere in its shadows hiding, it is better by far to hunt for a star than the spots on the sun abiding. The current of life runs ever away to the bosom of God's great ocean. Don't set your force against the river's course and think to alter its motion. Don't waste a course on the universe. Remember, it lived before you. Don't butt out the storm with your punny form, but bend and let it go o'er you. The world will never adjust itself to suit your whims to the letter. Some things must go wrong your whole life, and the sooner you know it, the better. It is folly to fight with the infinite and go under at last in the wrestle. The wiser man shapes into God's plan as water shapes into the vessel.
What a beautiful poem. One of my favorite parts of this poem is the last two, when he says, the wiser man shapes into God's plan as water shapes into a vessel. We sometimes forget that God has a plan for us. And even when we have our changes, it means that we have so much to share. So let's take another break here, and then we will continue.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Getting to the Light, Spiritist Therapy for Discarnate Spirits is a small book that offers guidance to Spiritist practitioners and Spiritist counselors. Purchase your copy at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no worries.
We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Nessa, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Help prevent suicide by reading and sharing these books with others. 2 great books are available to help in this Kardec Radio campaign to prevent suicide. Suicide, All You Need to Know, by the international Spiritist speaker Richard Simonetti. You can buy your copy at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. Also, Memoirs of a Suicide by the medium Yvonne Pereda. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Kardec Radio now offers more programs during the week and weekends. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can follow the beautiful program God at Home with Francisca Kranz and the British Spiritist community. They will brighten your days by doing a God at Home meeting wherever you are in the world, while teaching you how to do the same in your own home with your family and friends. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will hear incredibly inspirational Spiritist talks directly broadcasted by Spiritist Network. They will be true educational moments to carry out to immortality. Every Saturday, live interviews, Bridging Health and Spiritism with the host Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. You may ask questions to the interviewed guests by calling 858-769-4705. And every Sunday, tune in to Spiritist Awareness at Kardec Radio. You will hear a series of segments on a diversity of Spiritist topics. Kardec will broadcast the Spiritist Moment with Kirsten DeMello, the reading of the Spiritist book by John DeRosa and Steve Shepard, Spiritism in Your Life with Drs. Marco and Joyce Magalhães, Spiritism and the Gospel with Luis Sergio Marotta, Spiritist Education for Youth and Children with Bernadette Leal, Spiritist Music with James Marotta, Neuroscience and Spiritism with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and many more segments coming soon. Enjoy it all and nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
And now we return to our program.
All right, Kardec Radio listeners, we are back. And now we're going to introduce and talk to Sharon Connor. As I said, she's a professional coach, a minister, a writer, and a motivational speaker. And she's going to talk to us about changes in our lives. All right, let's get here. Good morning, Sharon. Are you there?
Good morning, Bernadette. I am here.
All right. We are so happy to have you here in our show. And today we are talking about challenges and changes. And we know that in life we all have so many changes, but sometimes we just don't know what to do when they are enacted, with our relationships and families. And I'm so glad you are here because I know you and you have a very positive perspective about that. But before we start, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background?
Sure. I will, but first I want to say thank you, Bernadette. What a great thing that you're doing this radio show for people who are looking for a little inspiration and reassurance. And so good for you that you did this. And I'm just honored and delighted to be here with you this morning. So thank you. My background. I think everything works together to bring us to where we are today. If we're paying attention in any way, shape, or form. So my background is that I was born and raised in Chicago in an Irish Catholic family. My dad was a policeman who rose in the ranks and wound up being deputy superintendent of police. So anyone who knows that kind of culture knows what it was like to grow up in that family. I was raised in a very disciplined family. I was the oldest and had to be sort of the mascot for the family, and I better do it right, and I better be good. So that was my start, and I was raised in Catholic schools as well until college. So I had a very strict upbringing. The other cultural thing about Irish Catholic families is that this I learned kind of later in life, but there is a tradition in Irish Catholic families that the firstborn is dedicated to God and expected to go into the religious life.
Wow.
So, on top of all that, having gone to Catholic schools, and the nuns and priests were always trying to talk us into joining the religious life. They were recruiting us. I thought maybe I'd be a nun, but then when I went away to college, I thought, well, maybe a nun, but no. I don't think they have nearly as much fun as priests. So I saw what the nuns had to do, and then I saw what the priests were doing. I thought, I'd really much rather be a priest, but, that wasn't going to happen. So anyway, that brought me into, the kinds of career paths I chose other than being a nun. But look what happened later in my life. I came back to the religious life anyway. So I wonder, is there a destiny for all of us as we reflect on our lives, as we look back and see where we've come from? Could we have come by any other way?
Right. So right there, you went through a lot of changes in your life and family and the way you were thinking. And how did you handle all that?
How did I handle the changes? Well, as I've matured, I've gotten a lot better about handling changes. But one thing is true. I think I've been curious most of my life, and still. Given my background, I was always a very fearful kid. I loved people, but I guess I would say I was pretty introverted, but mostly because I was afraid. Just had a lot of general fears, not anything in particular, but probably fear of rejection and fear that people won't like me, and fear of trying something new.
Oh, don't we all?
Yeah, like don't make me do something I'm not sure I'm going to be good at. Or don't make me do something when I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I want to know that everything's going to be okay before I jump off this cliff. So that began to change, though, in high school. I think if we reflect, most of us will see there were moments when the light went on in our hearts and minds where we see, if I'm going to be happy, I really need to make a change here. And that first, it was just like the first light bulb in my high school days where I thought, if I don't do something different, I'm going to wind up exactly where I'm going, which is living a life of fear and reluctance.
Right.
So I made a decision to try out for being editor of the newspaper, and I made a decision to be a class officer if I could. And that was huge for me. And the outcome was good. It didn't turn out badly as my imagination wanted to tell me. So that was the beginning of a significant change for me. And little changes happened along the way. But, sometimes, Bernadette, I would it would take me a very long time to be willing. And I love that word, willing.
Yes.
I've discovered that it's one of the most powerful words in our language in terms of our relationship with God and living a grace-filled life. That when I am willing for certain things, I open the door to the grace of God partnering with me to make all things right.
Right.
And it doesn't mean there aren't difficulties in life, but in the midst of difficulties, there's still grace. There's still God, if I'm willing. What do you think?
Wow. I completely agree with you. When things happen in our lives and we want to change, but we just sit still, like when something magically just happens and change in our lives, but we forgot the first step. Am I willing to make a change? I'm willing to willing to accept the situation, because we're stubborn, right? Like we go to work the same way every day, and suddenly there is an accident, and then you need to take another route. We can sit there, cry, complain, post all over Facebook, or say, "Hey, I'm willing to take this route here that is going to take me where I need." It's just the first step. This is awesome, thinking about the word willingness, that we don't think about that all the time. And that's really something that I will start thinking more about that. And I'm sure many of our listeners right now is reflecting about it. Good. So, but tell me, all the things that you went through in your life, and then many of us can relate to you, the fear and all that. What was the positive outcome in all that change?
Well, let me think where I want to start with that. I may start here and back up a bit.
Perfect.
Somewhere, maybe 10, 15 years ago, Bernadette, can't quite be sure about exactly how long, I decided, and I wasn't a minister yet. Gosh, so we're going back over 20 years. This was before I became a minister. I decided, and I can't even remember where I got the inspiration, but it was definitely an inspiration from somebody, something I read. It was, I think I want to have a theme for my year. Or I looked at what character qualities do I want to develop this year. As I reflected, and let me underscore it right now with, there came a point in my life where, and I was a mom of 2 children, 2 young kids, where my life was falling apart. My marriage wasn't working. My kids were not doing well. I wasn't making good decisions for them because of dealing with the marriage and what wasn't working there, and trying to fix it. So I was a mess. And the Catholic Church was not offering me consolation or a way. A friend of mine took me to my first Unity service. In that service, I heard that very first service, and it made me cry. The Christ presence lives in you as you, and you can access it through prayer and meditation. I heard that, and I went, oh my gosh, could that be true, that the divine spark is in me? I mean, that's how naive I was about this spiritual thing. But it made all the difference in the world, And concurrently with that, one of my spiritual mentors turned on a light when she said, we are always at choice. We always have a choice, even when it doesn't look like it. We always have a choice, at least about what we think about what's happening and how we respond to it. So those 2 things brought me to, okay, who do I really want to be then, and what do I really want my life to be like? So that's when I said, okay, what character qualities are important to me. And I wrote down a few, and then I picked one for that year. And I've gone through honesty, courage, integrity, faith, love, each year. And then when I went into the ministry, I picked a theme for the year, too, that fired my passion. And it always brought about change, but it undergirded all the changes that were happening or that I needed to make with an incredible kind of strength, a standard, a principle by which to handle the change.
Mm-hmm.
So did that answer the question?
Yes, it did. It's like I'm talking to you here, and I'm going, oh, my gosh, I need to do this with my life right now and think about it. Because you're giving me here, right now, you are giving me some homework. And our listeners, too, what character, trait I want in my life right now? Because we want to get better. We want to be able to handle whatever changes and challenges we are having in our lives. But sometimes we need some guidance too, and that's what Kardec Radio does. It nourishes our shows. We are bringing all the speakers to help us with life, because what do we want in life? We want to be happy, don't you think?
Exactly.
Because,
well, that's what the Dalai Lama said. We only... When it comes right down to the bottom line, all any of us wants to do and be is happy in our lives.
Yes.
And we always think that we're heading in that direction, and sometimes we misunderstand, That's why spiritual understanding is so important, and that's why prayer and meditation are so important as a daily practice, because it expands it actually purifies our consciousness so we can see clearly, hear divine guidance clearly.
Yes,
and take
I
action.
agree. So you mentioned prayer. And how do you feel about prayer in those moments in life? How does prayer help us with those struggles?
It begins, I think, with what we believe about God. And so talking about change, my evolution, or let's say transformation, spiritually speaking, is from a God that I didn't trust as a kid growing up because of the way God was described to me by the elders in my life. And the God that I believe in now. Very, very different. I was afraid of the God I grew up with because of punishment. If I don't do it right, I'm going to get punished by God.
Yes.
Or maybe go to hell. And so today, I came back when I started in Unity, actually. I began to come to an understanding of a different God, a God that is all love, all good. Life is creativity itself, intelligence, wisdom. So prayer taps into all of those qualities that I believe God is. And those qualities live and breathe as the Christ presence in me. So when I pray and meditate, I access the divine spark in me, and it's like plugging it into the source of electricity itself. So in prayer and meditation, I plug myself into God, who is everywhere present, all good, all wise, and if I'm paying attention, I will hear that still small voice of God whispering whatever I need. You know what I mean? If I need to change in some way, if I need to see it in a certain way, if I need reassurance, that is what I will hear if my mind is cleared. But you asked about prayer. Prayer has always been important to me because I don't know why. I mean, I just I guess because of my upbringing, God was a part of my thinking and my life. Prayer has always been important. I always wanted God in my life. I was always wanting divine inspiration. I guess I knew my own inspiration was just not getting it.
Yes.
So, and today I absolutely believe that's true, that inspiration, helpful inspiration, comes through a practice of prayer and meditation.
Right,
and, you know, it's like it happens any time of the day. I mean, prayer doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be certain words. It can be just now moment awareness of the presence of God in me and all around me and calling on it. You know, like sometimes I just say thank you throughout the day. You know, that's another form of prayer. Thank you, God, for this. I know I may be going here and there with this, but our focus is really important. So I can focus on what's not working, or I can focus on what is working and to notice the good that's happening in my life and thank God for it.
Yes.
Thank divine presence for it.
Right.
And the more I thank it, the more I get to experience it. That's the way the law works.
Mm-hmm. And since we are talking about prayer, I'm going to play right now the question 663 of the Spirit's book that talks about prayer. And after that, we can talk a little bit about it. All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Your experiences are part of a general plan, and there are some trials that you are better off going through. In all cases, the courage you display while undergoing your troubles does not go unnoticed. With prayer, you get the strength from the good spirits who come to you. You can also develop a more positive outlook toward your problems. An effective prayer is never useless. The very comfort it provides is a benefit by itself. The saying, "Heaven helps those who help themselves," couldn't be truer. Technically, God has instruments to intervene in your favor. Consider, however, that what appears to be a tragedy from the perspective of the physical realm may be a blessing in the context of the general order of the universe. Besides, many of your sorrows are self-inflicted. They could be the result of your own short-sightedness. Nonetheless, your requests are granted more frequently than you suppose. When a solution is not produced right away, you are often too quick to discount the value of prayer. But help usually comes so naturally that it seems to be the result of the ordinary course of things. What is even more common is for Providence to suggest to your mind a better way to deal with your difficulties. All right. So, question 663 of the Spirit's book talks about prayer and how important it is, because it inspires us to take action on what to do as we connect with God and the good spirits and with the Christ within. And it's easy when something unexpected in our lives, in our family, job, health, whatever, we complain, we get sad, we get frustrated, and it's understandable because it's something new. And our comfort zone is now on a break. The comfort zone says, I'm going to go on vacation right now. Now you handle this on your own. And the bottom line is, we are never alone. God is with us. Christ, our Christ, and prayer, and there is all those tools to help us during challenging moments. Do you agree? What do you think, Sharon?
I think you're absolutely right, Bernadette. Right on.
Good. All right. So, as I know you, and I had the opportunity to hear you speaking, and one thing that I love about you is joy. You're very joyful. You know, when I hear you speaking in your service, we just want to stand up, dance, sing, jump, scream, because you move something. Till today, I wake up in the morning and I look at my daughter and I go, feel the, and she says, love, Mama, feel the love. And how is it possible in the moments of challenges to find joy? Is it possible? Finding joy in this tough moment?
It always is. Who was it? Meister Eckhart, a Christian theologian, back in the 15th century, I think, 16th century, said, joy is the surest sign of the presence of God. And I believe that's true. It also, in the Bible, in our scripture, Jesus said, I came that you may, that my joy may be in you. He said, I'm saying all these things to you, all these principles and teachings, so that you may have the fullest kind of joy you can imagine. And so joy comes from, one way of looking at it, Bernadette, is that joy comes from practicing spiritual principles in all of our affairs. So we don't take the low road, we take the high road. The more we practice spiritual principles in the face of not wanting to, in the face of when it would be much easier and more humanly natural to us not to forgive, for example, or not to be loving when we're not in the mood, when we'd rather be loved than give love. It's about practicing the principle anyway. And as we do that, joy comes. And Scripture also says you will have joy and it cannot be taken from you. In other words, whatever happens in our lives, we can be sad, we can grieve, which is absolutely normal and appropriate, but it doesn't mean that we can't find joy anymore. So I have here's an example. And this just happened. I have a friend who's young son, I think he's maybe 30 right now. He had a brain tumor, but it wasn't diagnosed until it got as big as a golf ball. Well, when it was discovered and when he was told that he would have to have surgery and then radiation and chemo, and the odds weren't that great, honestly, there was like a transformation that came over him. He became so loving with people, so optimistic, so positive. I mean, he just went into that surgery, I'm ready. Let's get this done so I can get back to work and my life and the woman I love. I mean, that's an example of how we can find joy even in the most difficult of circumstances. And it doesn't mean that we have to. It doesn't mean that we have to not be true to ourselves. Being joyful is actually being true to ourselves. So terrible things happen and we may not feel joy right away, but that doesn't mean that it's gone forever and we'll never find it, because part of having that divine spark within us, the divine spark is the energy of joy, among other things. It's the energy of wisdom and life and beauty and all the good things we can imagine. And it's also the energy of joy. So we can always get back there. No one can take it from us without our permission.
Exactly. I learned that too. And smiling, when I think about joy, I think of smiling. If we wake up every day and we see all the things that we are grateful, and just, you cannot help but smile. There's just this natural smile. You look at people look at you and see you smiling, and it's so contagious. In my work, we are going through a lot of challenges too as a teacher. And I noticed that in the beginning, I was a little bit upset or, very serious, reflecting, and I look in the mirror and I saw that I was not smiling. And I asked my daughter, tell me what you think about me. She says, you haven't smiled for a while. I go, oh my gosh, where's the joy? I'm allowing all the things around me to affect me, and I forget to be joyful and smile. No matter how hard, this is temporary. This is temporary. We're going to get over it, and we're going to look back and go, hey, I did it.
Yes.
I did it. I'm a warrior. All right. So, Sharon, we're going to go to our break, and we'll be back to you. And we're going to talk about chemicalization, one of my favorite words. And we're going to share with our listeners what chemicalization is. All right, so let's go for our break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, Andre Louise emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want spirituous books for your children? At Edicei of America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the spirit Mei Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelison Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council. This year, in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritism for Everyone program will present an in-depth study of this remarkable book. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritist.us.
And now we return to our program.
All right, we are here at Kardec Radio with Sharon Connor. Sharon Connor is a professional coach, a minister, a writer, a motivational speaker, and we are talking about changes in our lives. How are we going to handle change? What do we do with our challenges? Do we freak out? Do we cry? What do we do? And we are just talking the importance of prayer, calming down, breathe, willing to accept and handle that because there is a divine purpose for everything. So, Sharon, before we went to the break, we were talking about chemicalization. I had a chance to read the book Lessons in Truth, and this completely opened my mind when I learned this word. And at work, when we are going through a lot of trouble and problems, I go, oh, come on, we are just going through some chemicalization. And they look at me and go, what are you talking about? So I'm going to let you explain to our listeners what the word is. And this is such a cool word for me. Go ahead. Give us a little lesson.
Yeah, let's hope I can make it clear. It is, it's a way, it's a word. It's what we call a framework to explain what's happening. So it is when the old meets the new, basically. And for chemists, they know what creates foam and what creates fire and what creates heat. So chemicalization, spiritually speaking, is when we hear a new idea, the old belief. For example, we were talking earlier about the belief that God is punishing, that God will punish us if we don't do certain things in a certain way. And then that collides with the principle that we go, oh no, I think this is that God is good all the time. When that kind of belief, when those two beliefs collide with one another, and it is a collision, it creates a certain kind of upset, a certain kind of spiritually chemicalized reaction, where we have to reconcile it. So it's called, for me, I think of it as a reconciliation. So it is where the old belief is not thought, it's just released. We forgive it, we let it go, we say, well, that's the way I used to believe, but now this is what I believe. It makes sense to me. I feel it in my very bones. But prior to that reconciliation, where there's a peace that comes, it's all this upset. Lots of times, and I think you mentioned it, the chemicalization is we're changing. We sometimes can get stuffy noses, a little physical congestion because there's some spiritual congestion.
Oh,
so chemicalization,
I like that.
You could say is a kind of spiritual congestion that happens when the old meets the new. Does that make sense?
Yes. And what I loved about the word, I thought myself in a lab. And all these things that I'm, pouring, I'm not very good with chemistry. I was not very good at it in high school. But I could see there is a transformation going on here. I'm learning new things. I'm making experiments and put all those things together that I didn't know, and I'm creating something new. So here is a new me, this transformation. And I just love it because we feel when something's changing, it's our mind, it's our body, and we even get sick sometimes because your whole being saying, okay, there's something going on, you're going through changes, and the question is, what is it here for me to learn? Whenever something happens and I'm start to freak out, I calm down, I breathe, I pray, and I go, okay, God, talk to me right now. Tell me. Show me. What is it for me to learn? What do I need to learn with this right now? Because there is always a lesson. There is always a divine order for everything, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I'll close with, we could in the framework see chemicalization as that transition period where transformation is happening, but it's not complete yet, so there's chemicalization going on.
Yeah, very well explained. Thank you. That's why you were a teacher, too. Our listeners, they don't know that you were also, did you say right at the beginning that you were a teacher in Chicago? Yes, I know. You're really good.
A Spanish teacher, and then I also taught motivating human behavior for a while. I taught handwriting analysis. I guess even as a minister, Bernadette, I think I was teaching. I was teaching on Sundays, and I taught classes in the church too. So I guess, teaching has always been my love.
All right. So you are a spiritual teacher. And yes. I love that about you. Now, let's talk a little bit back to prayer. I know you wrote a book about prayer, right? You wrote like Adventure in Prayer. Can you talk a little bit about your book? Go ahead.
Yes, I will. Well, I never set out to write a book about prayer. But let me preface that by saying I never set out to write a book. But that was divine guidance. I got this idea, or I heard, that still small voice, write a book. And I kept saying, God, I don't know what I would write a book about. What? I have no clue. Plus, I don't think I can. All those voices. And so a little chemicalization took place until I finally sat down and said, okay, I'll do it. But I began to research the 12 powers, which our listeners may not be aware of, but
yes.
The system is parallel to the chakra system or the Kabbalah, the Sefirot, and Judaism, and it is the 12 powers are our conception of aspects of God that are seed ideas in us that we are here to develop to their fullest capacity. So, for example, faith. I have faith that when I put a letter in a mailbox, it's going to get to where I want it to go. I have faith that I put my cake in the oven at 375, it's going to come out cooked. That kind of faith. That kind of faith needs to be evolved into I have faith in the future. I have faith that if I forgive, I'm going to know happiness and there will be healing. I have faith that I give instead of get, I'm going to be happy. So it's a spiritual kind of faith in God, faith in the Spirit of God in me and all around me. So anyway, that's the book I started out to write, The 12 Powers, because that's just the best, most helpful teaching we have. And then in research, I found myself pulling prayer books off the shelf at the Unity, which has, by the way, the best metaphysical library in the world. I found myself pulling books on prayer off the shelf and taking notes. And in retrospect, prayer had always been central in my life from the time I was a little kid. So that's how I came to write the book about. And then as I began to sort of piece it together, I realized that there are certain areas or arenas of prayer, let's say, where there are certain kinds, there are prayers for guidance, when we want guidance for something. There are prayers of gratitude. There are prayers for relationship, where we want a healing in a relationship. So that's how the book began to take form. I saw the areas in which to talk about prayer. How is it that we know guidance? When we pray for guidance, how do we know we're getting divine guidance as opposed to our own ego wanting something like that? So that's how the book evolved.
Yeah. And that's interesting you saying that, because in the Gospel According to Spiritism, our last chapter, it has examples of prayer. And it is prayer for somebody that is sick, prayer for guidance, prayer. It's not that you have to pray like that. It's just examples, and it matches exactly what you were talking about. Sometimes I am praying or I'm feeling, okay, I need to read something to help me to pray for this specific moment because I'm going through some difficulties, and I get the Gospel according to Spiritism, the last chapter, and I find a prayer to inspire me, and I go, okay, so I close and now I do my own. And of course, there is no rules. Prayer is just, you can pray dancing. There's another thing that I learned. One day I went to a workshop with Reverend Blair, and we were talking about prayer. And I go, what are all the ways that you can pray? And I go, can you pray through dance? I go, oh my gosh, now you're talking my language. All the Brazilian Latino came out of me.
Yes. I think dancing is prayer. Think about the Muslim Sufis. You know, the dervishes, dancing is prayer. Because I just think it is. It keeps us in the present, so focused in the present moment, and that's where God is, not in the past or the future. It's in the present moment for each of us.
Exactly. No, go on. Now, I know that when I met you, we were writing your second book. There was Adventures in Prayers for Children.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, and don't forget to tell us how we can get those wonderful books.
I love you. I just love you, Bernadette. Well, you know, I just had a thought about how another reason I wrote about prayer, and that's because I had a really dear friend. Oh, she was just very, very close to me, and she was a spiritual teacher. I mean, she was revered in our community, and she said, I was asking her about praying for herself because she got sick. And I said, well, have you said a prayer for your healing? And she said, oh, Sharon, I can't pray for myself. And I go, really? And then
wow.
She said, I don't know how to pray. I cannot believe you said that. But I heard that enough times, Bernadette, where people would say, gee, I don't know how to pray. I'd ask someone in the church, do you want to lead the prayer? Oh, no, I don't know how to pray. People think they don't know how to pray because they have to have certain words, and that there is no wrong way to pray. Prayer is just making an attempt in the now moment to connect with a power greater than yourself that you believe it can be of some help in the moment.
Right.
So anyway, so that's that part. So in terms of the kids, I was getting the same thing from parents when I talk about teaching your kids to pray. I don't know how to pray. How can I teach my kids to pray? Or they'd ask me, how do I teach my kids to pray? So I thought, well, okay, I'll write a book for it then. So that's how that one evolved. And then I interviewed, as I began to put the book together, I went to Youth and Family Ministries and sat with the kids at Blair's church and our church and elsewhere, and I started asking them questions like, well, what do you believe about God? What do you think about heaven? What do you know about prayer? I just started interviewing the kids, and I even asked some to give me an example of a prayer. So those appear in the book too. So I was inspired by the kids, actually.
Oh, and they are such an inspiration. I love children, you know. And what I like about that book is that it includes a guide for spiritual educators and parents. So as you were reading, you were learning, like, here's some homework, here's what you can do. And it's so important because we want to do it as a parent or a teacher or anyone. You have the desire, and sometimes you just don't know how. And you did this wonderful work. Hey, here's some things that you can do. And as we start doing the work, we feel inspired to do much, much more, right? And so where can we get those books? Can you tell our listeners? Is it on Amazon?
They're all on Amazon. And I guess I want to ask, it's true for both the adult book and the kids book.
Okay.
There are affirmations at the end of each chapter that align with the theme for the chapter. So affirmations about guidance. I know what to do and I do. And I wanted to have the kids come to understand the divine spark is in them, and that they can contact that, that divine spark can be activated in them in a way that they can understand. So it teaches them about a God they can come to trust, because it is a God of love and life and smartness and intelligence. And then I made affirmation cards for the prayer for the book for children.
I love, one thing I learned is I learn a lot about affirmations. Sometimes I see them and go, okay, I need to write an affirmation right now. It's not easy to write an affirmation because we don't pay attention that we can also be affirming something very negative.
That's true.
It's like, I'm not healthy, or something. We got to be careful how we write this without being negative, because what you wanted to achieve, and kids don't know it. Parents don't know it. Many of us don't know it. And I love your affirmations. Now let's go back to changes and challenges in our lives. What would you suggest for our listeners how to handle those moments in their lives of changes and challenges? What some steps? What could they do? Maybe someone is going through this right now with their families and in their own, work and financially and other struggles. How should they handle that? Just some suggestions, some tools. What would you say?
There are lots of things. So, but I'm going to start, of course, with to make a commitment and be dedicated to a prayer life, a prayer and meditation life, because it will, how can I say this? It will grow the Spirit of God in you. So the more I pray and meditate, the more spiritual power I have. The more spiritual power I have, the more effectively I can handle changes and difficulties. So it starts with our relationship with God, which is developed God, the divine energy of the universe that creates good, that is the answer to all issues. So start with that. Another thing to recognize is that we always have a choice, and we can choose to focus on whatever we want in the moment. I can focus on the problem I'm having right now, or I can turn my attention elsewhere to something much more interesting and useful. Another spiritual tool is don't fight it. We use the term non-resistance. The more you fight something, the bigger it gets. So to look at whatever the difficulty is and say, this is what's on my plate. Now what? Not, how can I get this off my plate? Why is this on my plate? Why did this happen to me? That is useless. What is useful is to say, okay, here it is. Now what? Now, what am I going to do to handle this? So the antidote is acceptance. Okay, I don't have to like it, but I at least have to stop fighting it and just accept that it's there.
Right.
And then one of the surest ways to turn something right, or to make something, or to change your mind and therefore change your life, is to be grateful. One of my practices, you've heard me say this, Bernadette, is to make a gratitude list every morning before I go out my door. And every night at the end of the day, I get on my knees and I thank God for everything good that's happening. That gratitude is absolutely miraculous as a practice. It can give us a different perspective on the challenges and difficulties. The other thing is, another practice is get into service. Get out of yourself and get into, what can I do to be a contribution to somebody else today? just get out of yourself and all that's going on with you and get into somebody else or something else. Get into service. As you know, because you were in service so much in the church.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. We stopped thinking about ourselves. Oh, thank you so much, Sharon. We are coming out towards the end. And can you tell us your website or how we can find you for if anyone would like you as a professional coach, a motivational speaker, or get in contact with you? Can you share with us, please?
Yes, it's Sharon Connors and Associates. And it's all one word, Sharon, Sharon, Connors, Connors, and associates.com.
All right. And in your website, we can find information about your books, too?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then you can, there's a contact there. So if you write your name and a way that I can contact you, I can get back to you as well.
All right. Well, Sharon, we want to say thank you so much. We learned so much. I always do with you. And all the information. You got a lot of food for thought. Now I'm going to be thinking, and some of our listeners too, all those insider spiritual tools. Bless you, and I hope we will talk to you again here in Kardec Radio. And I just have no words to say. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
and many
you,
blessings.
Bernadette. It's been a joy. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Bye.
Bye. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Dear listeners, what a great show. He helped us to think about challenges and how to handle them. We talked about joy. We talked about love, prayer, chemicalization. And remember, we are never alone. God is awesome, is always with us, no matter how hard things might be. So right now, I invite you, dear listeners, to do our prayer. Let's pray. Let's connect with our divine Creator. At this moment, let's close our eyes and connect with the divine within us. Divine Spirit, we know that sometimes in life we go through a lot of challenges, but we also know that there is a God's plan for everything. Help us during those moments. Help us to accept and inspire us so we can do the best we can. At this moment, we are so thankful for all the blessings in our lives. When little things happen that disappoint us, that upset us, help us to see the greater good in everything, all the blessings in our lives. We ask you that today you bless each one of us and also extend your love and your blessings throughout this world that needs so much love. We are grateful for all the blessings in our lives. And thank you. Thank you for life itself. Thank you for all the experiences that we have. And now, we continue our day feeling love and feeling peaceful. Thank you, thank you. Amen. All right, dear listeners, so we had this wonderful show, and don't forget to connect with us again next Saturday, where we're going to be talking about important matters too. Check our website and blog at KardecRadio.com. Until we meet again, have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.